Hello and welcome back to Kidocracy at Large. I'm Siddhan Chandra, here every Saturday to present current events and collective conditions in the light of kidocracy, which is a call for the rule of minors and minorities. Kidocratic education is led by minors and minorities, aimed at adults and the majority, through movements like BLM, Idle No More, Fridays for Future, Arab Spring, and so many more. Kidocracy educates not only through movements, but also actions taken by individuals to defend minorities in the face of persecution, imprisonment, and murder in the hands of powerful fascist states. Stan Swamy, a human rights activist and Jesuit priest, who defended Indigenous people's rights in Jharkhand for several decades, is such a person. He has died at the age of 84 after months in prison, which he very well knew that he could not survive. Despite his request to spare him jail, given his age, ailments, he had Parkinson's disease, and the heightened COVID risk in prisons, he was arrested last year, October 8th, under a highly repressive law that denies bail. Raised in a farming family in Tamil Nadu, Stan Swamy visited Jharkhand as a teenage Jesuit novice. According to his colleague, he fell in love with the Adivasi way of life. Adivasi meaning indigenous, their egalitarianism, their consensus-based decision-making, their closeness, and their contentment, which led to a life devoted to fighting for the rights of the indigenous people of Jharkhand, who are displaced and continue to be displaced by mining projects and dams. He challenged the Indian government on the non-implementation of the 5th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which stipulates setting up of a tribes advisory council with members solely of the indigenous communities. And in 2017, along with Sudha Bharadwaj, also currently in jail, Stan Swamy went on to create the Persecuted Prisoners Solidarity Committee to defend the 3,000 indigenous people currently in jail under trumped-up charges, and went on to sue the Jharkhand state government on behalf of those 3,000 people. Stan Swamy's imprisonment is connected to 15 other authors, academics, and labor union activists and poets arrested under the same repressive law, Unlawful Activities Prevent Act, UAPA. All but one of them continue to languish in jail with no end in sight. To name a few, Sudha Bharadwaj, trade unionist; Anand Teltumde, a celebrated Dalit Marxist historian; Varvara Rao, poet; and Vernon Gonzalez, activist and academic. The Economist sums up the case as follows. The police have tied the group, which includes distinguished academics, human rights activists, and a well-known poet, to a rally held in 2018 by low-caste Dalits, so-called untouchables, at a village called Bhima Koregaon, some 170 kilometers east of Mumbai. This was marred by a stone-throwing incident involving higher caste Marathas, during which one person died. Police have also claimed the group funneled money to Naxalite guerrillas seeking to overthrow the state and were plotting to assassinate Narendra Modi, India's Prime Minister. Though Stan Swamy and most of the others were not present at the rally in Bhima Koregaon, they were arrested on the basis of some documents that the police found on their computers. April this year, an independent investigation conducted by Arsenal Consulting, a Boston-based digital forensic firm, confirmed that this group of intellectuals, all of them, were victims of malware attacks dating back to 2016. Amnesty International and Citizens Lab, a Canadian research group, found that Dalit activists were targeted by hacking software, typically sold only to governments. Though the report by Arsenal Consulting came out in April, it did not make a difference for Stan Swamy or any of the other intellectuals of this group, who continue to have their bail pleas denied. Their persecution is replete with not only fascism, but also Philistinism. A Bombay High Court judge, questioning Vernon Gonsalves, one of the 16 accused in this case, why did you keep objectionable material such as books like War and Peace, books and CDs at home? This is Tolstoy's War and Peace we are talking about. Above all, Stan Swamy's death spotlights the fact that the conviction rate of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act is less than 2%. According to India Today, in the 5 years between 2015 and 2019, 7,840 people were arrested and only 155 convicted. It is typical to be denied bail and not approach trial for years. For example, Kanchan Nanavare, a 38-year-old Indigenous activist, died during her 6th year, awaiting trial as a terrorist, quote-unquote. In a typical case last month, 2 Kashmiri, quote-unquote, terrorists, who together lost 18 years of their lives awaiting trial in prison, were acquitted for lack of evidence. In other words, the process itself is the punishment. The accused emerge to find their livelihoods gone, families splintered, health compromised, and no compensation. And now, Stan Swamy is dead. He was subjected to deliberate cruelty. He was made an example of for his support for the most vulnerable people of India. His George Floyd moment lasted 9 months. He was killed in the plain view of the Indian public and the international human rights community. In a video shot a few days before his arrest, Stan Swamy said, "What is happening to me is not something unique, happening to me alone. It is a broader process that is taking place all over the country. We are all aware of how prominent intellectuals, lawyers, writers, poets, activists, students, leaders, they're all put into jail because they have expressed their dissent or raised questions about the ruling powers of India. In a way, I am happy to be part of this process. I am not a silent spectator, but part of the game and ready to pay the price, whatever be it." Stan Swamy has given all of us an unreturnable gift. He refused to be a silent spectator and dared to play the game. And he played for high stakes. He was the highly visible proxy for the indigenous people, Dalits, Muslims, students, and other minorities who dared to express their dissent and are currently locked up in jails. He practiced minoritarian politics, that is, identifying with the minorities, the vulnerable. He challenged the molar state and braced the molecular connections among the minorities. As acknowledged by the historian Romila Thapar in the film Campus Rising, the Indian educational system has promoted the sciences and technology while weakening the arts and humanities. It has promoted mastery and erased sovereignty. It has become fascist. Recently, Penguin Random House reissued a book by Narendra Modi called Exam Warriors with the following blurb. The new and enhanced edition of Exam Warriors by Narendra Modi is not only an inspiring book for students, but also for their parents and teachers. Written in a fun and interactive style, with illustrations, activities, and yoga asanas, this book will be a friend in acing exams and facing life. The Guardian quotes Modi's advice, open quote, "Do not merely dream of becoming a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. Think of how best you can make a difference to society and let that ideal guide you." Unquote. Mastery is normative. It follows the model of heteronormative success. With its relentless, quantifiable progress along the straight and narrow path of capitalist production and endless accumulation. But sovereignty is about living one's uncompromising truth authentically, even at the risk of imprisonment, persecution, exile, homelessness, poverty, and death. Stan Swamy's death is a wake-up call for India. His sovereign life embodies kidocratic anti-fascist education. It aims to integrate the 99%, divided by the 1%, so that we can control and regulate the planet's richest 1%. In the US, George Floyd's murder by a white supremacist cop reignited Black Lives Matter and upended a blatantly fascist presidency and launched a new era of intersectional solidarity among the minorities. Will the death of Stan Swamy ignite a similar anti-fascist movement? Will it unite the oppressed minorities of India, namely Indigenous people, Dalits, farmers, Muslims, activists, environmentalists, students, and women? So that we can rule and regulate the 1% of India? I hope so. Till next week. Bye.